I'm not going to mention any names, but I'm sure some people will know what I'm referencing. One of the biggest channels in the entirety of the Raid Shadow Legends content creation scene made a video recently where they talked about all of the epics inside the game, and they went through them very quickly and gave their very, very quick thoughts on it. And inside the Bannerlord faction, they said Sir Armatage is a pretty terrible unit. Now, I took exception to this because I have Sir Artimage, and he is a lot of fun to play with, and from my knowledge, at least with inside the community, he's been known for quite some time as an epic that actually has a lot of utility and can smack pretty hard. Now, I obviously have a pretty decently solid endgame account, so I have a lot of champions that I use in a lot of different areas with a lot of different builds, but this particular epic is one that I keep coming back to, whether it be Faction Wars Hard, obviously City of Centranos is a big area for a lot of epics as well, and I think it is very deserved that we talk about him and give him a little bit more love and a little bit more of a showcase than just, oh yeah, this guy's trash in like 5 seconds, right? So we're going to be doing that today. We're going to be breaking down his kit. We're going to be breaking down what makes him so good, as well as doing some damage tests as well. Now, if you like Raid Shadow Legends content and you want to support the channel, make sure to go ahead and like and subscribe to the video. Maybe leave a comment as well, letting me know how wrong I am or how right I am. And there is a Discord link down below as well. Now, all that being said, let's go ahead and talk about Sir Artimage, what makes him special. Well, first of all, he has an ally speed in arena battles by 20%, which is a very solid aura if you're just starting out or if you're pretty fresh into the game, right? So he's got a very decent aura there already. Very decent reviews across the board as well. He has an A1, attacks one enemy 2 times. First hit, 50% chance of decreased defense. Second hit, 50% chance of big version of decreased speed, right? Apart from this skill, this guy is kind of just an out-and-out damage dealer. However, having a damage dealer who can also bring some of the most crucial buffs with a multi-hitting A1 is insane, right? No matter what level of, gameplay you're at, right? Like, to put this in perspective, let's take a look at the new fusion that's coming out, right? He's supposedly a damage dealer, but he has a decreased defense and a block buffs, which means that he's going to be significantly valuable to some players inside things like Hydra, right? Well, Sir Artimage is also bringing the decreased defense and the decreased speed. Think about how useful this is for progressing inside Fire Knight, for example, right? A2 removes all debuffs from this champion, then attacks all enemies. This is a pretty damn decent skill. So removing all debuffs from him, this is going to be like, obviously, most debuffs, because things like petrification and I believe stuns will still cause him to miss his turn. Now, one thing I want to call out here real quick as well is his multiplier. So we'll talk about his next skill and then we'll talk about multiplier. So A3, Unshakable Valor, attacks one enemy, will ignore 30% of the target's defense. Just an inbuilt 30% defense ignore, right? Places an increased attack, big version, and increased crit damage buff on this champion for 2 turns if this attack kills an enemy. These buffs cannot be removed. Pretty decent setup, right? Now, if we look at his A3, the Unshakable Valor, this has a 6.7 times attack multiplier. 6.7 on a single target nuke with an inbuilt 30% defense ignore. For perspective, that's the equivalent of having a Savage set, right? As well as a Cruel set, right? That's how you get your 30% defense ignore. That is 5% off of the equivalent of having a 6-piece Merciless with a almost 7 times attack multiplier on this guy's A3 with a basic attack of 1300. This guy can smack. Now on his A2, it's also pretty decent. So the big AoE, it's going to be a 4.2 times attack multiplier. And again, keep in mind, if he opened with his A3, he's now going to have increased attack and increased crit damage to work with as well. And then finally, the A1, the 2 times hitter, is a 2.1. So overall, a 4.2 times attack multiplier. Now that's his kit. It's pretty basic, right? I do have him empowered +2. I have a 5-star awakening on him, so I have him inside Phantom Touch. If I had 6-star, I would definitely be putting him inside Crushing Rend. You could still put him inside Crushing Rend as is, but he's going to be supercharged basically if he's at a 6-star, where you get 1% ignore defense for every 10 levels. So against a lot of, like, you know, enemy waves, you're essentially getting anywhere between like 25 to 35% defense ignore. Now this guy also looks pretty fantastic, right? He's a very, very cool looking unit. Let's go ahead and take a look at his gear. So I do have him built out inside a 6-piece Merciless. This is the 6-piece Merciless that I use on my Tholen for the event dungeon. Now, we're going to be doing a DPS test on him inside Dragon's Lair, so this is how his stats are going to look. We have 5785 on the attack, 233 on the speed, he is pretty slow, 117 and then 258 on the crit rate and crit damage respectively. You'd probably want a bit more crit damage on him, to be honest, 254 and 361 on the resistance and accuracy respectively. Now, this guy does need a decent amount of accuracy if you're going to depend on his debuffs, but as you can see, for like a late game account like mine, you're getting so much accuracy coming through other things anyways, right? So the Empowerment's giving us 20, the Blessing's giving us 60, Faction Guardians is giving us 15. These outweigh whatever he may be getting from artifacts, and then Affinity Bonus is also giving us 80, which you can't really see, so I'll kind of move myself here maybe. So Affinity Bonuses plus 80, and then if you look over there, the actual artifact bonuses in total are 170. So realistically, this guy's going to have a crap ton of accuracy even without that. And if we look at like Faction Wars, for example, it gets even better, right? Because I have my Great Hall bonuses maxed out for Faction Wars, his stats look a little bit more juicy. Now, if we look through some of the particular pieces here, I say this all the time with this particular build especially, but the gear can be optimized further. So we're using crit rate gauntlets, right? It's better if these are crit damage. We're using attack with triple speed. We're using speed boots, and then for the upper pieces we have some decent stuff, right? But we have like triple accuracy here. It'd be better if it was like triple attack rolls, crit rate, crit damage, really anything else. So the gear can be significantly more min-maxed if you wanted to have a better experience. Now obviously this is a very kind of like late or a very end game build. I don't think a lot of players are going to be able to achieve this, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to test him and show you what he's all about. So before making this video, I did actually run in here and do some damage testing on Dragon Stage 20. Now, I understand that Dragon Stage 20 is kind of old content for most players, but it is still crucial to test here because this is where we've been testing champions for the last, like, what, 6 years that raid has been a thing. So we can't now just go to Dragon Hard and then invalidate all of the old research and testing that we had done previously. Now, since we have the increased attack, we are still going to go ahead and open with the A3 just so we get the increased crit damage as well. So we're going to go ahead and target the Apothecary, and boom, 245k on that massive single target hit. Now, I didn't show this, but another huge consideration here, I don't have masteries on Sir Artimage. There's a couple more things I'll show you in his kit, so I need to show you the relic he's got, and then I also need to show you the masteries that he doesn't have, essentially. So let's go ahead and get that AoE. Boom! 111 all the way up to, I think, like 140 there I seen. I didn't really look across the board. So very, very solid damage, right? His AoE is definitely a little bit less exciting than his single target smack, just because it doesn't have multipliers, ignore defense, those sorts of things. But in terms of his relic, right? So I have the Hammer of Ending, which is not giving him extra attack or anything like that. He does have this, he has a couple of gemstones on here, so he gets extra crit damage for each debuff he's under, and then he gains turn meter when an enemy loses 25% or more HP. So basically just, you know, regular nuker stuff. The Hammer of Ending has a chance to put a stun on the enemy that's irresistible whenever they reduce the target. So whenever he's doing damage to somebody, if he doesn't kill them, he's going to have the chance to place the stun, which goes all the way up to, what, like a 40% chance of placing a stun. It's very solid, especially if you put him in a stun set on top. But, like I said, no masteries on this guy, right? So if you get this guy down here to Helm Smasher, and he has that chance to ignore additional defense, it's going to mean that he is essentially doing true damage at that point. Now, we're going to go ahead and buff up here again. We obviously got the increased crit rate and crit damage from the A3 last time, so we're just going to go ahead and test the A2 without any of the increased crit damage. Boom! We get about 122k across the board, right? So again, his A2 is definitely not as impressive, shall we say, but keep in mind there is still the fact that he's transferring all debuffs from himself to the target. A1 smacks pretty hard, 65k per hit, right? So that transfer debuffs can be very, very good depending on the situation. For example, when we're in Dragon like this, if he gets poisons on him, he can transfer those back to the boss. If he gets weakens on him, he can transfer those to the boss. If he gets any sort of like, you know, soft CC effects, so for example, like decreased speeds, decrease attack, those sorts of things, he can put those on the boss, right? If the boss is susceptible to it, he can also just transfer it to a target enemy. So if you're trying to beat Faction Wars hard mode and the enemy team has like a decreased defense, you know, decreased accuracy is a big one, decreased resistance, if they have some sort of decreased speed, maybe a weaken on you, those sorts of things, even a fear if you get lucky on the 50-50, he can potentially transfer those back to the enemy. So if you're trying to get through the waves at any point with like an Elva or something like that on the enemy team, it can help a lot, right? He's part of the Bannerlord faction, and the Bannerlords are extremely tough to beat if you don't have some sort of, like, for example, Taurus Marichka, right? Or Aislinn, or just, you know, some of the best units in the entire game. If you don't have those, it's very tough to beat that particular faction war. So he can slot in and be, obviously, the DPS unit. Like, look at the damage he's doing. 247k against the boss. We get a good amount of debuffs up there. Not from him, of course. We just have debuffs overall. But even if we didn't have Lydia in this particular team, he would still be able to place the decreased defense, right? Because he has it on his A1. Now, I'm purposely, hopefully, he has some big hits coming in there. We may not get this done. But I was going to try and take some poisons, essentially, so that we could basically transfer those back to the boss. The boss on his A1 can place a decreased attack, which is not really too huge, so we're not really worried about that. Well, let's go ahead and put it on auto. This team can get through stage 20 Dragon perfectly fine, obviously. Artimage does have quite a bit of damage, or rather resistance as well, so a lot of the debuffs coming through, you know, we're not really too worried about. So we got some big numbers coming in there. And we're just going to let this run through. Afterwards, we are going to go ahead and do some testing with him inside the arena. Another thing to keep in mind here, too, that I haven't really talked about yet is his affinity, right? So the affinity can be a big part of if he's usable on your account. Now, he is a Force affinity champion. Basically, since the beginning of Raid, they've had a particular affinity, no pun intended, for magic champions. So some of the best champions that we have introduced into the game are magic champions, and certainly champions that you see all the time in PvP tend to be magic champions, right? So for example, Rotos, right? Magic champion. We have somebody like, you don't really see her as much anymore, but if you come to the demon spawn, I'm not gonna lie, I thought Duchess was magic. I'm wrong about that, my bad, but you get the point. Overall, there's a lot of magic champions that are introduced inside the game. And certainly a lot of the fusions and stuff like that we see are magic. So we also have like an Armand who's a magic affinity champion. And the Force affinity is going to be good against magic affinity because obviously magic is going to have a chance to weak hit. And then additionally the Force affinity are going to have the extra like crit rate as well as the chance to land strong hits and all that sort of good stuff. So we'll go ahead and try to take him into a battle here and see what he's capable of. We'll try a team like this, though I sincerely doubt that I'm faster, but you know what? We'll give it a go. We'll give it a go. And obviously keep in mind, like I mentioned, he does have the arena aura, so realistically, you could use him as your arena lead if you wanted. We'll go ahead and do something like this, and then maybe we'll throw in a Marichka as well. We'll bring Carnage in the lead. I'm just trying to think. Instead of Arbiter, I may just bring my Crixia to try and get a lockout there. We'll hope we're faster. Obviously, we're not really going to have an increased attack or anything like that coming in either, so it's just going to depend on if Sir Artimage can smack through like whatever defense they may have up. Now, their Shuzen is faster, but yeah, their Shuzen's faster. That's all you need to know. I didn't have my Sir Artimage in any sort of support or anything like that, so unfortunately he does get taken down pretty quick. We'll try to fight against like some of these other teams here potentially. I'm just trying to find something that has like good player power, essentially. Like, you can't really see them because of my head, but a lot of these are fairly low player power. So it's like some of the other ones were like this guy, for example, which is like 2.5 million player power, which doesn't seem like the most fair matchup, even though he has awakenings and whatnot, right? But let's check this guy. This guy's at 15 million. We should still be able to outspeed here, I would think. So we'll bring in our Arbiter and see if we can get this done. So we have Marichka in here for some support as well. We could also bring like a second speed booster if we wanted. We are faster, very marginally. Look at this. They're like very, very close to the same speed as us. If we get the lock on the Armands, we should be good to go, which we do get it, so that's perfect. And then we should be able to boost up again here with the Marichka as well. Now, of course, we do also have the increased attack. We'll boost again with Arbiter. As you can see, Sir Artimage is pretty damn slow. We'll go ahead and hit the AoE. We don't quite take them out, but we do very, very good damage against everyone, which is huge considering that we didn't have decreased defense out there. We didn't have weaken. We had really no, like, damage buffing abilities to try and enhance his damage, right? So we'll go ahead and see if we can't get another turn with him here. We'll be able to heal him up with the Marichka just barely. So now we can go in with the A1 against the Arbiter. We do take her down, a 27k hit plus a 23k proc from the Phantom Touch there. And again, if we had Crushing Rend, keep in mind the fact that we would be getting an additional 6% ignore defense. Now, the Armands does cut in, unfortunately, so we're going to have to go ahead and basically just abandon that fight. Let's go ahead and fight against some other teams as well here. So let's see, what's the PP on this guy? 13 million PP. You know what? We'll try it. We'll try it. He's got some high awakenings and whatnot. I hope I'm faster. My Arbiter's sitting right at around 400 speed these days. I was finally able to get her faster than the like 369 that I was plateaued at before. Again, we are faster, but just barely. So we should get the lockout here on everybody. So that's perfect. And we're going to go ahead and basically just put up some defensive, and then we're going to boost with our Marichka. We get a couple of relentless procs there. We get an ally attack coming in from the Artimage, which is perfect. Another extra turn from the Marichka. Absolute insanity here. We're going to go ahead and just smack into the Armands. He has Aspect of Surath on for some reason. So unfortunately, our smack really didn't do much, but we did fully reduce his turn meter there. That was a bit disappointing, certainly. We're going to go ahead. I'm going to place the block buffs. That way we can slap into the Siegfried. We do proc his passive, but we don't get the kill on him, unfortunately. Now, Fabian's also going to be annoying because he's going to be A2ing us every time we take a turn here successfully if we have the True Fears on us. So that is incredibly annoying, but we'll see what we can get figured out here. Let's go ahead and just kind of keep doing our thing. We tried to switch forms with the Crixia, but it did not work, unfortunately. The smacks come in from the Sir Artimage there, and we do almost kill the Siegfried, but we at least get the stun on him, which is nice, so we should be able to put enough damage into him here, hopefully, to take him down. There it is. We take down the Artimage. Now it should be just a matter of time until we're able to take out the Fabian and Armand's combination. Now, we don't really have Wand of Submission or anything like that, which is annoying, but there we go. We get the decreased speed on the Armands, which is nice. We got some extra hits coming in on him. He is, and there you go. There you go. That's what I was talking about with the affinity. You see how we had the weak hit on our Artimage from the Armands? That means that he wasn't able to steal any turn meter. He wasn't able to put the stun on us, and that potentially was a big factor in how quickly we're able to win this fight. Now, we do, of course, get our cooldowns increased by the Fabian because he's very annoying. So we're going to have to depend on some extra turns and some damage from the Arbiter here to win this fight, I think. And then hopefully the Arbiter can also cycle her turns quick enough. It doesn't look like it. We're just going to let this go on auto. Fun little factoid is my Arbiter's not even, like, fully booked. She's not, like, I think she just has, like, one book in her overall. So she doesn't have, like, you know, the cooldown reduction on her A3 and her A4. Kind of crazy, too, that Arbiter's one of the only champions in the game with, like, 4 active skills. So you have, like, the A1, you have the A2, and then you have also the A3 and A4. Yeah, so the A4 is like the revive into the A3, which is pretty cool. I should probably book her at some point, but, you know, it is what it is. We're going to be getting those extra turns from the Marichka, and that's going to slowly wear down the Fabian, it looks like, which is kind of cool, kind of crazy. This is where we're at sometimes when we do showcases of crazy champions, right? Now, if you have, say, for example, like a Necrit, right? That's going to make this job a lot easier. So Necrit could come in and protect your Sir Artimage and just do some work there. 15 million, this is the guy that we went against before. We'll go ahead and try this again. We will bring an Armands of our own just so we can do some CC there and make sure that, you know, their Armands isn't cutting in over time. So we were faster. We'll go ahead and boost up. Hopefully our Armands is fast enough. He is. We're going to go ahead and steal the turn meters. We're going to sheep the Cardiel. The sheep, or the Cardiel actually rather, has some pretty decent resistance, it looks like. So we'll just go ahead and take out the Arbiter. Boom. 127k. Take her down pretty easily. Now we're going to go ahead and try to increase cooldowns on the Cardiel. He is not liking it, man. He is not wanting to go for the... He's going for the resistance, basically. Alright, we're going to go ahead and get the whack out here with Artimage. Boom! We do take out the Rotos, we take out the Cardiel, and of course the Armands cuts in on us, which is some BS, but it is what it is. I guess we do have an ally attack coming in, which gives us turn meter boost on the Armands, which is perfect, so we can cut back in to their cut in and take their turn meter and whatnot. Now, again, ladies and gentlemen, this is the state of Raid Shadow Legends inside 2025. You have layers of RNG on top of each other, and the person who has the most RNG is going to be the person that manages to win the round. But it is what it is. I was talking about that in one of my Siege analysis videos, actually, which you'll probably be seeing before this video goes live. So there we go. We do manage to beat that particular team. Not bad, not bad. Now, obviously, a big part of that is being a go first team, so you wouldn't necessarily have this level of success in a go second team, certainly not if he wasn't inside Stone Skin. Let's go ahead and go into something perhaps a little bit more insane. So Matt Steele, 22 million player power account. Let's go ahead and give it a try here. So we do have a couple of 6-star awakenings. We have a Marius, which means that we can't really just bring our Armands because the Ancora is going to steal a stun from the Marius, which means that, you know, obviously bad things will happen to us if we try to take his turn meter. Now let's go ahead and lock everybody out. We do get the lock on nobody that really matters, so I'm curious if that's a high resistance Fabian or if we just got unlucky there. Let's go ahead and try again. Now he has a 6-star awakened Fabian, so it's very possible that it is like a higher resistance Fabian than we might be used to, but let's go ahead and see. It is not. We just got bad RNG. So let's go ahead and try this again here. We're going to go ahead and boost up. Now, one little tip I'll give you guys. So, big tip, actually. Don't get clapped by... don't get clapped by Marius. That's a pretty big tip, actually. That's a pretty useful tip as well, actually. So, we'll go ahead and try something like this. The reason I'm bringing UDK is not because I think he's going to counter Marius, but more so specifically because we have the UDK in a bolster set now. There we go. We get the lock again, so that's perfect. I'm hoping that the UDK's bolster gives us enough to survive. It does, but we now have the Enfeeble to deal with. This is insane. Again, RNG on top of RNG, but remember, ladies and gentlemen, he can transfer debuffs. So we're just going to go ahead. We're going to, or rather, he removes debuffs. He doesn't transfer them. So we're just going to go ahead and essentially say, hey, Mr. Marius, here, I didn't realize I had Enfeeble on Fabian, my bad, but I'm going to say, hey, Mr. Marius, doesn't really matter, you know, what's going on. We're going to get rid of that Enfeeble, and we're going to die again, and then the Marius reset comes through. So this is obviously a tough team to try and go against. This is a player power account that's higher than mine, actually, so, you know, trying to beat it with an epic in the end game when the epic's pretty slow, not in Stone Skin, probably not the best idea, but I think this is still a pretty decent showcase of just how useful Sir Artimage actually is inside Raid Shadow Legends. So make sure to let me know down below if you use him, where you use him, and how you have him built. I'd be very curious to hear about that. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I'll see you next time.